Hello, I'm so happy I got a hold of you. Welcome back to another exciting episode of LT Showcase. One of my viewers had a really interesting idea on my greatest games of 2019 list. He said, what are my favorite games of the decade? And that got me thinking, what are my favorite games of the decade? Well, luckily for you, I know what they are, and let's get to them. Now, this is going to be listed 1 through 10, but I'm kind of on the fence about some of the ordering, some of the ranking, and unfortunately there are some games that I had to leave off the list. So honorable mentions would be games like Link Between Worlds, Sekiro, Dead Cells, amongst others. But let's not talk about what didn't make it, let's talk about what did. And first, we're going to put a game at number 10 that was probably not a game on anyone else's number 10, but when this came out, it was a free game on PS Plus. My buddy John Riggs was streaming it, and something just piqued my interest, and I am so glad I checked it out. I'm usually not a big fan of boss rush games, but this one really just, the style, the feel, and more than anything, the soundtrack is amazing. And I'm, of course, talking about the wonderful Furi. This game is terrific. It is hard as balls. It's got a synthwave soundtrack that's just second to none. I even had to buy the dang thing. I love it that much. Carpenter Brut is on fire. It's my dang intro song for a lot of my videos, and just so much about this game is right. Once you beat it, you unlock a harder mode that adds new mechanics, and it just constantly is throwing craziness at you, and when you get good at it, it makes you feel good. It's one of the chief things I am upset with modern day reviewers is they probably couldn't beat the game, hence why they all complain about how hard it is. But if you get good, if you actually put in the time, it is one of the more rewarding experiences of this whole decade, and it's on everything. So you should check it out, and that is Furi. Now, number 9. Number 9 is a game that came out early. In fact, it just had a sequel that was shocking the world, but I am partial to the original, and not the original's original, the original, which is technically the sequel, which would be Red Dead Redemption. The first one I still got to give the edge to over the second one. The second one, like I told in my greatest games last year, was just a little bit too much simulator, not enough fun. Also the fact that it was a prequel versus this progresses the story. Just terrific game. Great gameplay, great story, great feel. It really made you feel like you were a cowboy. And just at the time when I played it, it was in 2010. I was still living at my parents', and I remember they were gone for that Christmas season. And just having the big screen TV to myself with Red Dead Redemption on it, hunting all kinds of whatnot and shenanigans, great. Just terrific experience. Number 8. Now, number 8 was one of the things that made me really fall in love with the Xbox 360. I wasn't too caught up in gaming back in 2010, really, 2009, because I'd recently recovered from World of Warcraft. And one of the games that really showed me, oh man, games can be more than what I thought they could be, was Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 2, I love this game. You know, I never played the first one. We'll talk about the third one at a different time, but the second one, great cast of characters, really cool way of introducing them and having them be a part of your team, and just everything about this game was so good. The light RPG elements with the action gameplay. Back then, not every game had RPG elements put into it, so this is one of the ones where it was like, oh wow, that's a new thing. Now it's kind of like, get your RPG elements out of all my stuff. I'm tired of it. But back then, great, amazing storyline. Getting to the end of the game where you have to go through the suicide mission and you can lose people was both nerve-wracking and thrilling. I remember having to do it, I think I beat the game twice full through, because the second time I wanted to keep everyone alive. I did all their personalized missions, but Mass Effect 2, phenomenal game. And at the time, you felt like your choices mattered. And that was part of the appeal. But great game, Mass Effect 2. You got guys like Krogan, Legion, Shepard. Oh, wonderful game. Now, number 7. Now, number 7 is a game that is a lot of people's game of the decade. It's got a new hit series on Netflix, which is terrific. And I'm, of course, talking about The Witcher 3. Last year, or 2 years ago, whatever it was, I had a week left on my vacation, and I was ready to finally tackle this beast, and I wish I could put more time into it because the combat's great, the story is great. I'm not a guy that likes a lot of chat tree options in my games anymore, but playing through this one, I loved it. I loved every minute of it. The actual monster hunt that you would go through, just the choices. Once again, the choices in this game did feel like they mattered, especially if you didn't make a choice with the relationship aspects, because then a choice is made for you. So a great game, Witcher 3, phenomenal, can't recommend it enough, and I'd love to go back and check out the other two, but I don't know. I've heard the first one didn't age as well, but then again, I don't really trust modern day game journalists anymore. Anyways, number 6. Now, number 6, you all know I don't like handheld games, and I really, really don't want to get a system just to play a certain game, and I didn't. But I'm talking about Fire Emblem Awakening. I knew about this game, I knew when it came out, it looked good, I just didn't want to buy a 3DS. I only bought a 3DS when Link Between Worlds was announced, so in the interim before that game came out, I picked up Fire Emblem Awakening. And I put in maybe 80, 90 hours into it. It rekindled that love for Fire Emblem. It was just so much fun. And a great game. And it saved the series. You know, at the time, I really enjoyed what it did. It allowed you to endlessly level up your characters. Gave you the duo system. Stuff like that. You had kids. So you could have your units marry and then have a offspring that had both their powers. Which was really a cool concept. I kind of cooled off on some of what it did since then, but at the time, it was great and really saved the series. So yeah, Fire Emblem Awakening number 6. Now, number 5. Number 5 is a game that I only played maybe a year and a half after it came out. When it came out, it lit the world on fire. It's a little indie game made by, I think, just one guy, and that game is Stardew Valley. And Stardew Valley. I love Harvest Moon on the N64. That was one of the games that I took a chance on that actually panned out back then. Because a lot of the other games that I tried on the N64, like the Doom and Hexen and some of the like Mega Man, stuff like that, were other Castlevania, other series didn't pan out. But I heard about Harvest Moon and I played out that on the N64 and it was great. And Stardew Valley is pretty much taking that Harvest Moon formula, giving it an unlimited dungeon system, more intricate characters, more events, more awesomeness. Like it's a great game, and it's one of probably the biggest game on this list that I regret not putting more time into it. It's just there's only so much time in the day, but I love Stardew Valley. I have the soundtrack. It is so relaxing. It's just a great time reflecting on when I played it, and I highly recommend it. It's a wonderful game. Number 4. Now, number 4 might surprise some of you that it's not higher on this list. It definitely deserves to be on it, and it's my game of the year for 2017. That's Breath of the Wild. Wow, what an experience just getting out of that cave, like I talked about in my little video about it, just seeing the scope of the world and thinking I can go anywhere was amazing, and the game never let off. Even after I beat it, it still continued to reward me with exploration, finding new things, finding the island where it takes away all your gear, finding the mazes, all the little temples. You know, it started to, at the end of it, it started to feel like, man, I wish there was more dungeons. I wish you could harp on, I wish it had more of this, but what it did have was an amazing experience that I put 70, 60 hours into, and I loved every second of it. So Breath of the Wild is number 4 game of the decade. Now, what could be better than that? Well, my number 3 just happens to be another Switch game, which came out the following year, Octopath Traveler. Now, you know I love my 8-bit, 16-bit RPGs, and this game came through in spades. And I don't know if it's because I also played it while I was visiting my family in Montana and going through Glacier National Park, also playing Octopath, and just a great chill experience. Finally an RPG like the ones I've been playing for the channel for years that was brand new, and then having all the different job systems and classes and just having it be the soundtrack. Like, Octopath is an amazing game, and luckily it's on other consoles and other it's on PC now. I don't know if it's on other consoles, but I know it's on PC, so you should definitely check it out. It's the soundtrack you're listening to right now. I love the battle music. I love everything about that game. And my cat is going and ruining my audio. Anyways, number 2. So, what could this Nintendo fanboy like more than Breath of the Wild and Octopath? Well, God of War. God of War crushed it. It beat out Octopath last year, or 2 years ago, and it beat out Octopath again. Because it really, no game more this decade took an existing franchise and made me love it more. Breath of the Wild, I already can't love Zelda more. But God of War took everything that made God of War 3 amazing and somehow made it better. I don't know how they did it. They brought in and also I played on Give Me God of War modes, so that was incredible. All the difficulty, getting the Blades of Olympus back when spoilers, I didn't even realize I was going to be part of the game, was a legit reaction, and nothing that came out this decade gave me that visceral, oh my god moment like God of War did. Story's amazing. The end of the game, there's a great tease, so I'm looking forward to more from that series. Number one. What could be better than all of those games? Well, this is one that rekindled a love of a game style that I had not given up on, but I hadn't played in a while, and was a different franchise. And the funny thing about this game is I wasn't even interested in it. I saw a Game Informer article about it. I didn't read it. It was a cover story. I thought it looked like a stupid first-person shooter, like everything was a first-person shooter. And then I was doing a show of all things, and the director was like, "Oh, are you looking into this game?" I'm like, "Nah, it looks like a first-person shooter." It's like, "No, it's not. It's a team-based tactical shooter where you have a squad and you go." And I'm like, "Well, excuse me." So I went home, I read the article, and I was like, "Oh my god, I need this right now." And lo and behold, XCOM, Enemy Unknown. Wow, this game is incredible. Incredible. Arguably the second one is better, but I gotta give it to the first one because it brought me back to the tactical genre, which I love the tactical genre. Fire Emblem Awakening I played after I played this game, and it's just the intensity, the amount of missed shots, missed opportunities, and the permanence of it where you continue on. Because one thing about Fire Emblem is when you lose units, you feel like you can't continue on because you can't replace them. In XCOM, the whole point is replacing your units. You have 4 different classes, they can have different variances, but you're supposed to lose people. I mean, not supposed, but if you lose people, you can recover. In Fire Emblem, if you lose your big mage, it's hard to replace that person. And they're also integral to the story, versus your units in XCOM, they aren't integral to the story. And you get to name them yourselves, which is also cool. I have my coworker, this guy Pablo, in XCOM. I named my squad after my coworkers, and he was the only guy to survive the big incursion in XCOM 2. And then in XCOM 1, we had a thing where I was dating my wife at the time, so I had her in it, and then I had this other guy that was a friend of ours called the Hawk, and we put him in the game just to have him, because he was probably going to die. I'd be like, it'll be funny. He was a guy we used to make a joke about all the time, and he ended up becoming a hero. So I was like, oh my god, the Hawk hits it again! Like, what other game can give you that kind of that kind of sheer entertainment value? But XCOM Enemy Unknown, game of the decade. And I hope you guys enjoyed this list. Let me know what your games of the decade was. Let me know if you agree with some of these choices. And once again, it's been so nice getting a hold of you. Take care.